Just all right. So, hey everybody, my name is Yvette LeFlore, and I'm here with Shari L. Riley, and we are going to talk about setting boundaries with your guides. So, if you have yet to see it, you can check on the Healing with Yvette page or Shari L. Riley Intuitive Healing page for the phase 1, which was connecting with your guides, or you can go to either of our YouTube channels to see that. But tonight, what we want to talk about is setting boundaries, because we both know and we've heard that oftentimes people have concerns about, what if I bring in a negative entity, or how do I make sure that nothing comes to me, or how do I make sure that I only get positive messages, or I want to sleep at night. I don't want them bothering me all the time. So there's all these concerns that people come to the table with. And so we want to address that and several other things tonight. But I want to go back to for a moment to the connecting with your guides, because I know that since some of you watched part 1, you have been working on making that connection, and you may be saying, it's been 2 weeks and nothing has happened. And so I was telling Shari before we came live that I was listening to an interview with Esther Hicks, who connects with Abraham. She and Jerry, her husband Jerry, connect with Abraham, and Oprah was interviewing her. And she said it took her 9 months of daily meditation to make that connection. So I just want you to hang in there with that. And Shari's going to talk a little bit more about that tonight as well. All right. So now that introduction is out of the way, Shari, thank you for being here tonight. I'm really excited to work with you once again to share information about creating boundaries with your guides.
Yeah, I'm always happy to be with you, Yvette. We have great conversations.
We do. All right, so why don't we start off by talking about why do you set boundaries or protect yourself before you even do connect with your guides?
Well, one of the things that I teach in my intuitive healing certification class is it's really important to surround yourself with positive energy, to really set the intention that you're going to only be connected to love and light. There are ways to connect in with certain archangels so that you can put light around yourself. You can remove other people's energy so that you stay as pure as you can. And the reason we do that is we attract like energy. So when people are scared, who am I going to let in? It's just like a doorbell, right? That's right. You're going to ring the doorbell, maybe a guy, an entity, a guide, a person that has passed is seeing have a doorway, and they ring your doorbell and they say, hey, can I come in? And you get to decide who you're going to let in or not. You can look through that little peephole and ask, who is this? Why are you connecting? And it's okay to just say, you know what? I don't want that energy in my field. It's really important to protect yourself because there are all different vibrations out there. And I know myself and I think you as well, we only work with the higher frequencies.
Yeah.
And so we're very careful with the energies that we allow into our own field.
I know that whenever I open up to connect, first of all, I connect with my ancestors, and my ancestors are here for my highest and best good. And I also clearly state, only those who are here in the highest of light and love are welcome.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, you create that intention, and where you put your attention is what you connect with.
And I think once you learn some tools, boundaries, And the more you do it, the less scary it is. Absolutely takes time and commitment. In my certification class, I teach this class called Dating Your Guides. And it is about, just like any person that you want to get to know, people are just energy too. So
Right.
anytime you want to get to know someone, you have to commit to spending time with them, to asking questions, to deciding whether this is someone you resonate with or not. So it's really a process, and it's a developing a relationship.
So what I hear you saying in that is that you can have a guide come to you, because we all have different levels of connection. Some may hear, some may see, some may sense. We talked in our first one about them angel numbers coming through, or animals, or there's lots of different ways that our guides come through. But let's just say that you're now, I forget the question I was going to ask you. Yeah, I totally forget my question.
No problem. I think what we have to realize is that we're co-creating with our guides, right? That it's not just a one-sided thing. It is a give and take relationship. And I know we were starting out with like the protection before you even get started, but I think that it takes time, it takes commitment. And once you do learn how to develop a relationship, to realize that it's not one-sided. They're not doing something to us. We're equal partners in this relationship. And some people have blocks around that. If you're not really good with boundaries, and you're not really good with that, with people in your life, it could bring up some fear. It could bring up some, again, blocks around trying to connect in. And so these boundaries, learning about boundaries, learning about your needs, all those things not only help us with our guides, right? But it helps us with interpersonal relationships here also.
Yeah, I want to share an example. I will say what my question was so you can have, in this co-creation, you can have guides show up where you're like, I'm not ready to work with you yet. When I started connecting with my ancestors, still have like such a vivid memory of sitting down to do this meditation, and this it was a literal wall of light of people coming towards me, and I felt such intense love. Like the love that came to me was overwhelming, and I was like, I can't do this, and I shut it down, because to allow that level of love in was so uncomfortable. So I had to I was like, okay, I'm ready to try it now. But you have that control to shut it down and then say, okay, I'm ready.
Absolutely. And I find that we have to also remember that if we're sleeping, a lot of times our guides will come through in the beginning when you're sleeping, because that's when you have less filters up. My first real connection with my highest love light energy that I call God was in a dream. And we were God took me on this dance, and it was the most gorgeous thing ever. And the message was, let God lead. And that was really the beginning of my journey. It was like amazing, gold, sparkly room. And we were just like I was just waltzing with God. I mean, it was just amazing. And so, and that's, I mean, I had gifts when I was a kid, but that was when I was really starting to put words to what I was experiencing. And so I think a lot of people don't know what they're experiencing. And that's also why they're scared. And
Mhm.
once they come to things like this, or they read books, or they take our workshops, they start realizing that they're not out of control when they're connecting with their guides, that they actually have still their sense of self.
Yes.
And the other thing that I wanted to say about that is, I know that there are people that have said to me, okay, Shari, I get that. And, I do have my guides come through at night, but then I don't sleep. It's scary, or I wake up, or I don't want to fall asleep. And have a conversation with your guides and say, this isn't the good time. I'm human. Humans need sleep. I had one client that the guides were coming through while they were driving, and she had to have a conversation. That is not the time to come through. I'm concentrating on driving. And what I tell my clients is, when things like that are happening and you need to create that boundary, tell them, I'm going to meditate each week or each day, twice a week. When I meditate, that's when I want you to come through. When I sit down with my journal, that's when I want you to come through. And it does shift, maybe not immediately, as you were talking about, Hicks taking 9 months for things to come through, but the changes do happen. If you're consistent, they'll know when to show up. So trust the process and trust them to be equal partners in this journey with you.
And it is that consistency. It is that consistency. And I'll just say it again, even though you mentioned it and talked about the dating of your guides and creating that relationship. What you need to think about when you're doing this is any relationship. If you are just someone who stops in periodically and no one knows that you're showing up, they're not waiting for you. They don't know you're coming. They're not expecting you. And so it's about creating that, whatever your consistency is creating that consistency.
Exactly. And when I started IET, integrated energy therapy, when I became a practitioner and got certified in IET, we were taught a way to connect into guides. And that's another way. If you are trained in a modality, you might have a way where for me, it's just connecting these fingers, and that's how I open up to my guides. So Reiki has their own way. All different modalities have their own way of connecting in and sending a message. Yes, now. Maybe it's breath work. Maybe it's yoga. So again, there's lots of ways out there, not just one way at all. You kind of have to find your own unique relationship. And just like I say, when you're in a intimate relationship with your partner, you got to find out each other's idiosyncrasies. Well, our guides have their own idiosyncrasies. Each guide feels different. You may feel it in different areas, different vibrations. And so, it takes time to learn their unique language, their unique idiosyncrasies, the way that they want to communicate. So it's a process.
And I encourage people to consider journaling. I am not a huge fan of journaling. It's just never been my go-to. My hands cramp up pretty quickly, and so I resist. However, I find that when I do journal, when I do keep track of when I've been visited, what I've heard, the dream that I had, the angel number that, like the angel, they've been waking me up at 3:33 in the morning this week, is keeping track of that, because then you begin to develop and see where you are developing, what you are learning, how they are communicating with you. And it gives you a track to look back on, to go, oh, I forgot about that.
Exactly, the patterns, you
Yeah.
know, the patterns that show up. And 333, knowing you're surrounded by spirit. So
Well, I
but
joked about it because Sunday night, 3:33, Tuesday night, 3:33. I'm like, I see what they're doing. They're telling me to set those boundaries, like, because we're talking about boundaries on Thursday night. So they're
That's
just saying, remember, set your boundaries. And so
Can
I set the boundaries last night. It was the squirrels in the attic that woke me up, not the angels last night.
oh God. I know, I was thinking, can you tell them, not 3:33 a.m., 3:33 p.m.
Yeah,
I'll go sit in the p.m.,
that would have been good. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of special niches that we all get to learn about ourselves, about our guides. Again, I really believe in checking in with your inner guidance and see what resonates with you. You were talking about journaling. I'm the opposite. I love to journal. That seems to be my thing. It works for me to get those messages out. Also, free writing. So I just write whatever I hear, so that I'm trying to get my brain out of the way. And a lot of times I'll start that with a brain dump. I call it a brain dump, where we just write all kinds of stuff down just to get it out. And that is a way also to let your guides kind of talk to you, because it's not always, let me say it this way. It's a great way to learn what's your own busy brain and what your guides sound like. Because I know when I journal, my brain sounds one way. Even the words that I use sounds one way. When my guides start coming in, it sounds different. The tone is different. Maybe even the words are different. For me, they like to call me dear one. So I know when it starts out, dear one, after I'm writing, and they'll like say dear one, I'm like, oh, okay. When I read back, I know that's my guides are coming through. So notice that. Notice what sounds different to you and what is your voices coming from your head. The other thing I want to say about that, I know it's a little off topic from boundaries, but to not, like, when our guides talk to us, they come from a loving place.
Yes.
So if you're hearing a lot of fear, that's your mind. Because I think when we're kind of opening these doors and we might have fear around it, or even just overwhelm, there might be a lot of negative self-talk. Know that that negative self-talk is not your guides. They don't communicate in that way. Yeah,
their source is love. Yeah. The other thing that I want to touch on, because we've talked about journaling, we've talked about meditation, we've talked about connecting with ancestors, we've talked about all these different things, is to the bottom line is, don't compare yourself to somebody else. Your connection, your journey with your guides will be just as unique as your fingerprint.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think, people get, it's kind of a human trait where people look at others and they say, I don't get that, or that's not what happens to me, or I wish I could hear or see things, and sometimes that inner turmoil about how your guides show up can block your guide from showing up. I always say the how is not our job. The how is not our job. Our job is to set the intention, to follow the feelings of whatever it is we want to feel, and open that door, but not to have a strict idea of how something has to happen or come through.
Yeah. Yeah.
We are all so different. And, we were talking about this a little earlier, that also we internally go through cycles. So I was sharing with you earlier that I've kind of been in a deep healing cycle where I haven't done a lot of the tools to really connect in with my guides. I've connected with the ones that are here to help me heal, but not the ones that are growing my business, not the ones that I've been through that kind of help me connect with areas of high frequency. Those are different for me. And I really haven't spent a lot of time there in the last couple of years because I've been doing all this other deep work. And so for me, certain guides are there for me to help me heal, and others are there, and to help me connect to spirit in a different way. So we also have cycles, and we can't say, man, now I'm not, meditating every day anymore, shame on me. There should be no guilt, no shame in this process. This is really about opening your heart and allowing.
You were reminding me, I mean, I know that this happens, but in your talking about the different ways that we hear message and not comparing, is once I started my energy healing practice and I'm working with people, I often get spirit message through song lyrics. Like I hear songs, and to me, it's just the funniest thing I'm like, okay, I'm going to sing you a song. I want you, like, I don't know what it means. You got to, but that's how they give me message. Because music is something that's important to me, something that and that's actually a really good thing to bring in, is spirit talks to you in a language that you can hear. So I hear music, I hear lyrics. That's how they communicate with me. You might see things, you might be very sensitive smell wise, and so they give you olfactory sensations or smells, but they'll communicate with you in a way that you understand.
Yeah, I'm kind of visual with my signs. So with my validation, I'll see numbers. We talked about that last time. When I'm really in my head, the animals will show up because they get my attention. But when I'm hearing messages for my clients, I'm more clairaudio, where I'm hearing messages. So absolutely, I think, again, it's like, keep practicing, keep playing with it. Allow yourself to feel into what feels true to you. And again, just know you have a say in all of this. It's not like there's this open door and you get bombarded. And the other thing is, especially when we're working with angels, we have to ask. They don't just kind of come in out of the blue. They might be waiting for you to say yes, and give them the opportunity to show up. They sometimes they won't show up unless we're requesting it. So that's another thing. Remember to ask. And when I teach the class about dating your guides, I always say, you pray is the asking, and the meditation is setting the time, like the date, and then you have to listen. That's showing that they're important to you, that you're willing, that you want to know about what they're saying and how they show up. So it's a 3-part process: pray, meditate, and then listen.
That was so monumental for me when I learned that in your class. That really made such a difference. Going back to the how you get message, I want to say part of boundaries, but it's because what you're doing is setting up that relationship, is being clear about asking for clear messages, right? I please continue to bring me the message until I understand it. Or I do best with seeing things. Please deliver your message in that way, so that you're making your needs known. That's part of, I keep getting, this was what you started off with about how you are in relationships in the physical world, is, that codependency. If you have a tendency to be codependent, your guys, like, stuff's going to come through because you're not setting any boundaries. And it's important to make your needs known.
And again, if that's a issue you have in the physical world, maybe from a trauma or something, you might have to do some work around that trauma first before you get the messages from your guides, because you're having a hard time asking, because it doesn't feel natural and true, or vice versa. You might heal it by working with your guides, and then it gets easier to do it in physical relationships. So if there is resistance, ask yourself why. Why is there resistance? It can help you discover and uncover some other things that you're working on as well that will help you on in all areas of your life.
Oh, so like you'll heal at the same time you're having these connections?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's why I think our guides are here. Our guides are here to help us along this journey that we call life. And they're here to pave the way. They're here to make it less challenging. They're here to root us on. There's many reasons that our guides show up. We're not walking this path alone. We're just not. And they're around us, whether we utilize them or not, that's up to us.
Yeah. And one of the, I want to call it rituals that I have, one of the things that I do is I thank, because I'm not aware of all of the guides that are there, because I know there are more than I'm connected to. And I also know that there are some that are waiting to come in. They need to be invited in. And there are some whose job is done and they want to go. So I give thanks to all the guides who have been here for the work that you have done with me. I appreciate you. For those of you who it's your time to go, I give you blessings to leave, and I open up to receive those who are here for the next steps. So that there's a permission, a gratitude, a thank you, permission to leave, permission to come in.
That's beautiful. Yeah, that's beautiful. And, to also piggyback on that, those that are willing to come in for my best and highest good.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for, yes.
So we're, again, we're all learning. I mean, I've been doing this for 20 plus years, and there are still things that I forget to do, or I learn new ways. I think my guides have been shifting and changing as well, and so that shifts the relationship and how I show up. I love the idea, though, that we're here with an open heart, and with that open heart, we attract in support, we attract in guidance, we attract in love. These are the things that, at least me personally, that's how I want to be guided.
Yeah.
And so, Brene Brown talks about, without boundaries, you can't have compassion. And I believe without boundaries, we can't really connect in with an open heart, because we're too vulnerable to have that large open heart. I know a lot of my clients, and I don't know about yours, but I would assume yours as well, are highly sensitive people. And we naturally walk around with an open heart. And so sometimes that can be difficult, and you're taking on other people's energy, or you're feeling things, or you're highly sensitive. And so learning those boundaries, both for ourselves and for our guides, kind of makes the journey a little easier. And I know a lot of my clients have had success around not being so sensitive to certain things that have always kind of hindered their way of being in the world once they learn some boundaries around their guides as well as their own life.
It translates.
Yeah.
It's like what you learn in one area of life translates to other areas.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Anything else you want to add about setting boundaries? I looked in the Facebook group. I'm not seeing any questions that we need to answer. I'll look again. But anything else that you would want to share about setting boundaries? Or, I mean, our next one will be about interpreting the messages of your guides. So
yeah,
we'll
I'm excited. One of the things I did just want to touch on, because we talked about the praying and the meditation and the listening, that you don't have to pray a certain way. You can just ask, how do I do this? Or I want to know. It doesn't have to be some ritual or large prayer or anything. It could just be show me the way. So and I love ending with that thank you, show me the way, thank you, or guide me, thank you. Meditation for people that have issues with sitting still and can't kind of quiet their mind. I teach a walking meditation. And the way that I do that is kind of like with a labyrinth kind of idea, where you go on a walk, and on the way out to a place, whether it be a park or a couple of blocks or whatever, you talk about anything that's kind of coming up for you. So that could be the prayer part. You just kind of have that conversation with your guides. And when you get to the halfway mark, you kind of stop, take a couple of deep breaths. And on the way back, you listen. You just look for signs, you listen, you see. And that, I just wanted to throw some things out there, because some people get a little overwhelmed with the prayer and the meditation. There's not one way to do it. Right. You could do guided meditations, you could do, again, the journaling. So it's really about creating the time and showing up consistently. And it doesn't have to be every day. It could be once a week, it could be once a month, it could be at the new moon, it could be at the full moon. But there is something about a consistency. So your guides know that you're opening up that process for them to communicate with you.
And it is like building a muscle. If you go to the gym once a month, you'll get the results of going to the gym once a month versus going to the gym every other day. So there is that. And I think it's so important, that piece about meditation, because that quiet meditation, that sitting meditation, can be difficult for people. So like the following of your breath, just being with your breath. Some people will use swimming. Yeah. I find vacuuming very meditative, because it's just like there's that white noise of the vacuum, and I'm just in my head if I don't have, earbuds in. So there's many different ways to quiet without having to be quiet.
Absolutely. Yeah, without having to like sit still and cross-legged position. Right. So yeah, again, find what works for you.
Yes. All right. Well, Shari, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to part 3. Make sure that you check out our Facebook pages for that. If you're watching this live, if you're watching the recording, you will find part 3 in the places where you found part 1 and part 2.
Absolutely, on Yvette's page and my page. And
And
well, thank you so much for having me. It's always, like I said, a pleasure to talk with you and share, and I'm just grateful.
ditto, ditto. Thank you.
All right.